Hi everyone, I'm recording this brief video to talk about Holocaust education, especially in light of the anniversary of the Pittsburgh synagogue shooting. I'm sending this to you exactly on this day. You will receive this on the morning of the anniversary. And I want to make this a very thoughtful piece, but a very shortful piece for you. I'm going to combine this video with supplemental things for you to read. For example, I'm going to send you an example of a unit of instruction designed by a former student of mine that related to Holocaust education. And I'm also going to send you a short article that I've written about Holocaust education, which actually gets pretty personal, but it gives you an idea of how you can approach Holocaust education as a teacher. You received this video on the anniversary of the Tree of Life synagogue shooting in Squirrel Hill of Pittsburgh that took place with Sabbath services on that day. 11 people were killed, 6 people were wounded. And there has also been a rise in anti-Semitic activity online. As you will see in the supplemental article that I've written that I'm attaching along with this video, I do have a connection here. I attended school from 3rd grade into most of 6th grade while I was living in Pittsburgh at what was called a community day school, located not far from where the shooting took place. Of course, I had long since moved away from Pittsburgh by the time that shooting occurred, and in fact, 2018, I was living in St. Louis. I, of course, began teaching at University of Arkansas Little Rock in 2019, August 2019. The picture that you're seeing was a school picture early in my time at Community Day School in Pittsburgh. You'll learn a little bit more about my background in that article that I've written. But the bottom line is that, yes, this is personal to me. Many of the people that I didn't know anyone that was killed, but I certainly knew people who were deeply affected by that. And I do have deep roots that go back in that area and in that community, going back to my childhood. The person who committed the killings had been making anti-Semitic as well as anti-immigrant comments on social media. The Holocaust can be taught in, broadly speaking, 2 different ways. It can be taught in combination, as you also teach about various other types of human rights abuses and genocides. Genocide in Rwanda, genocides in various wars, human rights abuses that have taken place around the world. And you can often teach this historically on the international stage or even connected with human rights abuses in present day. It can also be taught as a singular catastrophic event that is very specific to the Jewish people and the Jewish experience as well. And those are 2 different ways of teaching it. Each way is very much valid. As you teach about this, generally speaking, there's a tradition in Holocaust education about encouraging students to be upstanders and not bystanders. An upstander is one who speaks up and stands up against injustices. A bystander is one who takes no action. For instance, when it comes to the Holocaust, there were some people who stood up and spoke up against the Holocaust before it actually was happening and during the Holocaust, but there were plenty of others in Germany and elsewhere who were basically bystanders. So as you teach about Holocaust education, uh, you can frequently combine it with literary discussion groups, inquiry-based learning, and with reading various different types of stories and literature. You can combine it with education about the lived experiences of people in concentration camps. And you can connect that with other learning, for instance, about children missing parents, children hiding from capture, and the courage that it takes to risk one's life in resistance to the Holocaust. You can also, during units, shed light on the Holocaust. Instruction should not shy away from the atrocities of the concentration camps. Children need to know about this if it's going to have any kind of real meaning. And you can also explore, and you should explore, the moral context of being an upstander, not a bystander, and the moral context of what can give rise to, for instance, totalitarianism of Nazism, which in turn gives rise to the Holocaust. The study of the Holocaust can be deeply emotional as well as intellectual for your students. And of course, some scholars would argue that elementary students might not be ready for that experience, so be careful. It can be very triggering and emotional for the students. There's a long-standing tradition of Holocaust education that is connective with present day events, present day human rights abuses, and genocides that you can be studying. And this actually makes it very real for the students as they connect their study of the Holocaust with human psychology or sociology, for instance, with studies of civics. They can include that, for instance, with studies of technologies that gave rise to the implementation of the Holocaust, with World War II ideologies of totalitarianism and Nazism that gave rise to people actually, frankly, participating in the Holocaust, studies of morality and ethics, which gets back into the ethics of being an upstander, not a bystander. You can include the study of the Holocaust with the study of the rise of the Nazi movement. You can include Holocaust education with diverse ways of meaning making, reading, writing, listening, speaking, creating, and making sense out of visual representation, as well as the use of digital technology. There is a tradition of what's called critical literacy. Critical literacy involves the analysis of ideology as well as social structures that can give rise to injustices in society. In the case of Holocaust education, injustices that enable the Holocaust to occur, and then students can critique power relationships that and the type of frankly racist mythos that Hitler and other Nazis used to give rise to the Holocaust. Um, Students can challenge preconceptions of identities. For instance, the racist identities and identity constructs that Nazis were using. That they can challenge power relationships, including power within systemic injustices. Certainly, there were systemic injustices that were used against the Jewish people, and the goal here is to help students consider how to take steps toward more moral and ethical lives. There's what's called the interactive model of critical literacy education. South African educator Hilary Jenks is best known for this. Now, first of all, remember, when we talk about critical literacy education, we're not talking about a set of methods so much as we're talking about a mindset of critiquing injustices and critiquing power relationships. So, as you do this, you can ground your education in issues that allow students to study dominance and power. Students can study, and you can think about which of your students might have better access to print and digital tools, and gear your education accordingly. You can think about who has representation, who does not, as you choose what text students are going to be reading. You can think about what types of text students are going to be reading and what types of text students are going to be using as you redesign your instructional approach to encourage reflective practice on issues of morality and ethics and power relationships intertwined with the Holocaust. So the dimensions that you would want to think about in your Holocaust education include critiquing of how a text is positioning students as readers, what values and messages are implied within that text. Students should be considering whose voices are included in the text they're reading and whose voices are excluded. For instance, is the text including or excluding the actual voices of Holocaust survivors. Students can also critique socio-political context in which human rights abuses, to include the Holocaust, take place, and then what action steps can they take place within their society, as well as their own lived experiences, in accord with the types of moral and ethical decision making that you want to be encouraging as part of this approach to education. Uh, like I said, I wanted to make this a short video. This is definitely a deeply personal video to me because of my own lived experiences. Take care of yourselves.